A newborn baby girl was abandoned at birth, simply because she was born without eyes. Everyone assumed her future was hopeless. But what happened next wasn't just unexpected, it was a miracle no one saw coming. Stay with us, because this story will stay with you forever. And tell us in comments where you're watching from. When Sarah walked into the clinic that cold autumn morning, she thought it was just another routine checkup. She was 31 weeks pregnant, nervous but hopeful. Her life wasn't perfect, far from it. But she had been holding on to the idea that maybe, just maybe, this baby could bring light into her small, quiet world. But nothing could have prepared her for what the doctor was about to say. The room grew heavy when the nurse went silent, eyes flicking to the monitor. Minutes later, a second doctor stepped in. Sarah's heart pounded. Then came the words that shattered her. "Your baby doesn't appear to have eyes." Sarah blinked, confused. "What do you mean, doesn't have eyes?" The doctor explained the condition. Bilateral anophthalmia, rare, incurable. Her daughter would be born completely blind, without eye tissue at all. Sarah nodded slowly, trying to stay calm, but inside, she was falling apart. She left the hospital with a tight chest and trembling hands. She didn't speak to anyone on the way home. There was no one to call anyway. She lived alone in a small apartment outside Hawthorne. No family nearby, no partner, just her, and now, the weight of a decision she never expected to face. Over the next few weeks, Sarah wrestled with thoughts that tore her apart. She imagined her daughter growing up in a world of darkness, facing stares, pity, and endless challenges. Would she go to school? Would she make friends? Would she feel normal? But the harder question was one Sarah kept avoiding. Could she really do this alone? She worked part-time at a diner. Rent was already past due. And her savings? Just enough for groceries and prenatal vitamins. The more she thought about doctor visits, surgeries, therapy, the more impossible it all seemed. As her due date drew closer, Sarah's doubts grew louder, not because she didn't want her baby, but because she loved her enough to want more for her than a life of struggle. And so, she made the hardest decision of her life. She would carry her daughter to term and then place her for adoption. Sarah didn't tell anyone. She didn't even buy baby clothes. On the day Lily was born, Sarah asked the nurses to take her straight from the delivery room. She couldn't bring herself to look. One glance, she feared, and she wouldn't be able to let go. The sound of a newborn cry echoed in the room as Sarah closed her eyes. Moments later, she was alone. Lily, tiny, beautiful, and blind, was now in the hands of strangers. Lily was transferred to Sunnybrook Children's Home, a small orphanage near Fairview. The staff there had seen many difficult cases, but none quite like hers. Born without eyes, Lily was medically fragile, or so they thought. But the moment she arrived, it became clear, Lily wasn't weak. She was extraordinary. Despite everything, she smiled. She responded to soft voices, turned her head toward gentle humming, and let out the tiniest giggle when someone tickled her toes. Her presence lit up the nursery. Doctors ran tests. Aside from 2 small, harmless cysts on her forehead, Lily was perfectly healthy. No hearing issues, no brain abnormalities, no developmental delays. Her condition was rare, yes, but she was thriving. Still, there was one challenge they couldn't ignore. Without eyeballs, Lily's facial bones wouldn't grow properly. Over time, her face could collapse inward around the sockets. It would affect not only her appearance, but possibly her ability to eat and speak. There was only one solution: orbital implants. Tiny prosthetic eye orbs placed behind her eyelids to guide her facial development as she grew. The surgery wouldn't restore vision, but it would allow her to live a more normal life. And one nurse in particular, Laura, was determined to make sure that happened. From the moment Nurse Laura held Lily in her arms, something clicked. There was no logical explanation, just an unshakable bond. Lily would grab her finger and refuse to let go. Laura would hum lullabies during night shifts, and Lily would smile in response every single time. Laura had seen many children come and go from Sunnybrook, but Lily was different. When the hospital confirmed that Lily was ready for surgery, Laura didn't hesitate. She took time off, packed a small overnight bag, and volunteered to accompany Lily to Northwood Medical Center for the procedure. Other nurses called her brave. Laura didn't think of it that way. She just knew Lily deserved more than waking up from surgery in a cold room without a familiar voice nearby. The procedure took hours. Laura sat in the waiting room, motionless, whispering silent prayers. When the surgeon finally appeared and said, "It went perfectly," she exhaled for the first time in hours. She stepped into recovery, leaned in, and whispered, "Lily, it's me." Lily stirred and smiled. She couldn't see Laura, but she felt her. And that was enough. Back at Sunnybrook, the staff celebrated the success of the surgery, but they all knew the next challenge would be even harder, finding Lily a family. Not just any home, but one ready to love a blind child, forever. With the surgery behind her and a medical plan in place, the search for Lily's forever home began. The staff at Sunnybrook created an adoption profile, photos, notes about her progress, a list of medical needs. But what they really wanted to show was who Lily was, a joyful baby who smiled when she heard music and reached out for familiar voices. Still, every time a prospective family visited, hope quickly turned into heartache. Some couples stopped at her crib, asked polite questions, and moved on. Others glanced at the note describing her condition and never asked to meet her at all. "She's blind?" they'd whisper to staff. "Oh, I see." But they didn't see, not really. They didn't see the way Lily laughed during bath time, or how she loved listening to birds outside the window, or the tiny way she clapped her hands when someone told her, "You're safe." To them, Lily was a diagnosis, not a daughter. As Christmas neared, the halls of Sunnybrook filled with paper snowflakes and warm cinnamon scents. Children rehearsed holiday songs. Donations poured in, blankets, toys, storybooks. But one crib sat quietly in the corner, untouched by the excitement. Lily's. No tree, no presents, no family on the way. Nurse Laura couldn't stop thinking about it. Lily alone on Christmas morning. It just didn't sit right. She brought the idea up during a staff meeting. What if we share her story? Publicly? Some hesitated. Turning Lily into a media subject could be risky. But Laura wasn't proposing anything flashy or invasive. Just one honest article. One chance to show the world what they saw in Lily. She reached out to a local journalist named Emma Carter, someone known for telling sensitive stories with care. Emma visited Sunnybrook the following week. She spent hours with Lily, watching, listening, asking gentle questions. She didn't focus on the condition. She focused on the child. Later that evening, Emma published a feature titled, "The Baby Who Smiles Without Seeing." It ran in the Fairview Times and quickly spread across social media. People were drawn in by the headline, but they stayed for the story. Emma had captured everything: Lily's warmth, her resilience, her connection with Laura, and her need for a special kind of love. By the next morning, Sunnybrook's inbox had exploded. Hundreds of emails, dozens of calls. Families from across the country, and even outside of it, were reaching out. Lily, the baby no one had wanted to meet, was now the baby everyone wanted to bring home. The staff at Sunnybrook were overwhelmed, in the best way possible. Adoption inquiries came from everywhere. Families wrote heartfelt letters. Some sent photos of nurseries they'd prepared just for Lily. But behind the joy was a difficult question: who should be chosen? Lily's condition wasn't something anyone could take lightly. She would need facial implant surgeries every year, careful medical follow-ups, and the kind of patience most people underestimate. And while many applicants meant well, most lived far away, making it nearly impossible for local agencies to monitor her care closely. The staff wanted Lily's new home to be loving, yes, but also practical and safe. Then, just 5 days before Christmas, one application stood out. A couple from Meadowville, just an hour from Sunnybrook, had sent in their forms: Jake and Megan Turner. They had 2 children of their own and lived a quiet, grounded life. Megan had once worked as a preschool teacher. Jake ran a small woodworking business from home. But what moved the staff most was their letter. They didn't talk about fixing Lily. They didn't talk about feeling sorry for her. They talked about who she was, how her smile moved them, how her spirit came through every word of the article, and how they couldn't stop imagining her in their family photos. They were invited to visit the orphanage that weekend. And when they walked through the doors of Sunnybrook, everything changed. The moment Megan stepped into the nursery, Lily stirred in her crib. She couldn't see the woman approaching, but somehow, she sensed something different. Megan knelt beside her and softly whispered, "Hi, sweetheart." Lily reached out, tiny fingers brushing against Megan's cheek. Then came the smile. Wide, full of joy. The kind that had melted every heart at Sunnybrook. Jake stood quietly behind them, watching. Then he stepped closer and gently rubbed Lily's back. "She's perfect," he said, not as a compliment, as a fact. The Turners stayed for hours. They asked about Lily's routine, her medical care, her favorite songs. Megan held her close while Jake made silly noises that made Lily giggle. Their 2 kids, waiting in the hallway, peeked in and waved. Lily clapped her hands at the sound of their laughter. It wasn't just a visit. It felt like a homecoming. Later that day, as the Turners prepared to leave, Megan turned to Laura and said, "We don't need more time. We know. She's our daughter." The paperwork was expedited. The decision was unanimous. Every staff member at Sunnybrook agreed they had found the right family. And on Christmas Eve, Lily left the orphanage for the last time, swaddled in a red blanket, tucked in Megan's arms. She didn't see the snow falling outside. She didn't see the lights or the wreath on the Turners' front door. But she felt it. She felt home. On Christmas morning, the Turner home was filled with the sounds of wrapping paper tearing, laughter echoing through the hallway, and cinnamon rolls baking in the oven. Lily sat cradled in Megan's lap beside the fireplace. She couldn't see the twinkling lights on the tree or the gifts stacked underneath it. But she could feel the warmth of the fire, the rhythm of her new family's voices, the beat of a heart that now belonged to her. Her siblings treated her like they'd known her forever. They didn't shy away from her blindness. They didn't treat her like she was fragile. They simply treated her like Lily. Later that afternoon, the family dog, Buddy, nestled next to her. Jake placed one of his handmade wooden toys into Lily's lap. She traced the edges, giggling when it made a sound. They were small moments, but they were everything. Journalist Emma Carter wrote one final piece. It was short, simple, but it said it all. This Christmas, the baby who was once abandoned in silence was wrapped in love loud enough for the world to hear. Lily's journey had come full circle, from a hospital crib no one wanted to a home filled with laughter and light. Her blindness would always be part of her story, but it would never be the whole story, because Lily didn't need eyes to see that she was wanted. She could feel it, in every hug, every word, every kiss on her cheek. Do you think Sarah made the right decision by putting Lily up for adoption? What would you say to parents facing the same heartbreaking choice today? Please comment your thoughts below. You never know who's reading or how your words might give someone else the strength they need. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like and hit that subscribe button. We've got more true stories that will move you. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the biggest miracles come with the cutest smiles.